Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's April 17th, 2020, and I thought I'd give you an update on the infectious agent that I've been dealing with. After my video I posted a couple of days ago, people were interested in getting progress reports and how things have been progressing over time. And so I thought that's what I'd do today. The last 48 hours have been hell. Now, I have been able to really take good care of my lungs during this time, so there's less need for me to be coughing and bringing stuff up. Although I practice it regularly, getting in a belly down position and back up position and taking many deep breaths and then coughing. Now when I take my deep breaths, I take a long inhale and hold it for like 5-10 seconds. Then I let it out, and I do that for a couple of times. Then I get vertical again and cough and try to bring up whatever I can from the lower airways. When we lay on our backs, as I mentioned before, what happens is so much of our lung mass is on the dorsal aspect, the back end just beneath our spinal cord. And, and that area gets, it's called atelectasis, where the alveoli, they actually compress down, and they're excuse me, there isn't enough air being put into them to expand them. And I've talked about the type 1 and type 2 pneumocytes. The type 1s are the very thin ones that line the alveoli. That's the air sac itself. And that's because it's so thin that allows good gas exchange. Oxygen getting loaded on to red blood cells and carbon dioxide leaving the plasma and going into the lung space and then ultimately getting expelled. So, and the virus is very, excuse me, the virus is very well known to primarily attack those ACE receptors. And I've talked before about the angioconverting enzyme receptors on the surface of different molecules. And that helps to maintain our electrolytes, our blood pressure, all of those things and more things as well, the ones in our lungs, because they cause a conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, and you don't need to know any more about that. But that ACE receptor is located in other tissues of the body, quite a few other tissues. And some of the other symptoms that I have that have gotten much more severe, I've mentioned before how bad the headaches I get are. To the point where maybe I can sleep for 15 minutes at a time, episodically. And that really wears on you. The stress of not getting adequate sleep is really a tremendous pain. Some of it has to do with the headaches, but some of it has to do with other things going on in the brain as well, and I'm going to talk about that. But these ACE receptors are on all different cells throughout the body, many different cells. And they're in the brain as well, and they're near baroreceptors, pressure sensors. So one of the symptoms that I've been having is if I go to change my position, and an example was I haven't seen Timmy in 2 days, and I just came here from the house and walked over here, and Timmy came out, so I knew I had to bend over and pet him, and he was loving as usual. He doesn't appear to be injured. But I fell down a few times after that, trying to get up and get my balance. So one of the things you'd want to check with that is what's your blood pressure, and I've been staying on top of that as well. So my blood pressure is very normal. It's about 130 to 131, maybe 135 over 70 to 75. So that's real good. Now I have had problems with blood pressure many years ago when I was obese and when I ate a totally different diet. But since I made the dietary changes, the blood pressure problems all resolved, the obesity resolved, and I've been much healthier as a result. So In the brain, there are these ACE receptors, and in the baroreceptors, there are the ACE receptors that are affected as well. I apologize for this. I'm not used to talking. And as a result, we can lose our balance, become dizzy, become weak, fall over. Just turning my head when I'm walking in a straight line to look what's going on from a noise I hear to my left side, I may start to fall over. So I've got to be very careful with that. Going down spiral stairs is a challenge as well, because you're turning as you're going down in elevation. And this has nothing to do with blood pressure. The blood pressure is normal. It has to do with what I'm going to call encephalitis, inflammation within our central nervous system, within the brain. And there are many other tissues that have the ACE receptors that account for many different symptoms that people have. But this would tell you that this virus actually gets through the blood-brain barrier and can affect the central nervous system. And right now, in the United States, I don't believe that I haven't done literature research in 3 days. So there may be some new information out there. But I saw one video, a news report from a doctor in an ICU who mentioned that they had an increased incidence of stroke rates. And there's 2 different types of strokes, a bleeding stroke and an occlusion stroke. But either way, it compromises the life of those neurons that blood vessel is going to. And there are other factors that could lead to a coagulopathy, in other words, this throwing a thrombus in the central nervous system, or causing a bleed, and that has to do with ACE receptors in other tissues, including the liver. So, you know, it's one of these things where in the States right now, I see people just in high gear trying to do what's absolutely essential to save lives. And so there isn't necessarily going to be the time to do the investigation. There are many bodies, they get their diagnosis and they need to be carted away and buried or put into refrigeration and all. And a timely autopsy, necropsy, post-mortem examination can really yield a lot of information about the amount of inflammation in which areas are being affected. So it's my hypothesis that that this virus gets into the central nervous system and is responsible for all of the things that I'm having affected with my sense of balance, my sense of blood pressure control when I change positions and all. So those are a couple of real biggies. 2 other areas that I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but I did mention it in Dan Mace's video, which I posted I think 2 weeks ago. And one of the things Dan mentioned, and I forgot to mention it last time, is you lose your sense of taste and your sense of smell. And absolutely, that happens. Bitter is still there for me. So my coffee, which I usually love black, just tastes like pure bitterness when I have the cup now. So I think that's about it. So, man, this thing really kicks your butt. This is not something to think, oh, you're just going to get over it. Now, maybe I am one of those serious cases, but who knows how many people like myself are not going in and getting tested. You got to go through so many hoops here. They want you to run other tests, respiratory infectious agents, influenza, and as you saw in the video that I posted about, excuse me, Dan Mace, in the United States, if you get a positive test result on an influenza, they aren't going to test you for the pandemic virus, and that's a terrible shame because he was positive for that pandemic virus. So you can have co-infections. So I know that there's people who are going out and protesting, some of the mayors and governors trying to enforce social distancing and stay at home, self-quarantine, that sort of thing. which I, after going through this, I think is so, so valuable. I'm out here in the country, and this is amazing that that someone like me got this. Thank God I've been in good physical condition, because those people who aren't in good health may succumb to this infection. I could still get a stroke at any time with this with this infectious agent as well. I always remember the rest of the things that I wanted to say after I turned the camera off. But I'm getting winded again. I'm going to head back to the house. I want you folks to take care of yourselves, talk to your loved ones, talk to your kids, talk to your family members about how important it is for social distancing, trying not to get infected, because even if you're healthy, you could actually end up very, very sick. It can kick your butt. Thanks so much for watching, folks, and have a great day. Bye-bye now.